Hello and welcome to Right On, the podcast from Final Draft. This is the show where we talk about all things screenwriting. I'm your host, Phil Galasso. Today's interview is with John Lee, co-writer of the new film False Positive, starring Ilana Glazer, Justin Theroux, and Pierce Brosnan. The new thriller follows Glazer's character Lucy as she sets out to uncover the unsettling truth about her fertility doctor.
So, you two need a little help. I will give you the best possible chance of getting pregnant. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Am I gonna be one of those women who has it all? My career, my kids, my old man by my side?
Who are you calling old? You are 100% pregnant.
Welcome to the family. How are you? A little crazy. I'm seeing things.
Honey, me too. I'm having the wildest mommy brain lately.
I don't think it's mommy brain. I think Dr. Hindle did something. I think they're in on it.
In on what?
Dr. Hindle gives me a bad feeling. I want to see someone more natural.
There's a lot of voodoo out there. We just want to make sure that you get the best possible care.
Confront whatever it is that's blocking you from you.
I'm not crazy. They're trying to make me think I'm crazy.
Doing great, Lucy. Just push.
Hey, this pregnancy shit is no joke, right? Okay, it's really scary.
Host Sharday Sellers and John discussed collaborating on the script with Ilana Glazer, dismantling harmful horror tropes, making the audience question reality, and more. Check it out.
Welcome back, everyone, to Right On. It's Sharday here, and I have a very special guest today who made a horror film that I got to watch over the weekend that I am obsessed with. I'm here with co-writer and director of False Positive, John Lee. Hi, John.
Hi, how are you?
I am not so great after watching your film.
I know, I'm sorry. I warn people ahead of time. I ask, are you pregnant? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, then let's not talk about it. You know, are you planning?
That's so funny.
Pregnant?
Yes.
Let's not talk about it.
That's the one right there. I'm not pregnant, but I would like to be in the future, but now I'm not so sure. After watching your film.
I apologize for that. I've had my lady and I, we have two babies or two children now, but like, you know, so like it can get past the horror that is False Positive.
Well, then I want to ask you, okay, so as someone who yourself hasn't been pregnant, as you're writing this, did you lean on your lady, I'm going to call her your lady because that's how you called her, for any clarifications on what pregnancy feels like?
No, the origins of the idea were my wife and I had my lady wife, we had a miscarriage for our first attempt. And so it came from that sort of experience in the isolation of that and being with her during that process and understanding it. So then I started to have these kind of pictures in my mind. Basically, the ending of the movie came first for me. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes it does. And the ending came first. And I really tried to understand what it meant for me and why. And then I became friends with the author Alyssa Nutting. Do you know her from Made for Love?
I don't.
Oh, yeah. She just has that TV series right now, Made for Love. She has the movie she made with, she and I wrote the story together. And then she has a TV show with Allison Levy, my wife, coming out in a couple months. So she's like on a tear right now. But she and I just sort of floated around in this kind of mercurial mood of understanding birth and the kind of the isolating nature of healthcare we have in our country and like the kind of demonic kind of like debasing kind of problem that, you know, treatment towards women. And so I didn't talk to my wife that much. She doesn't like scary movies. She thought She thinks Stranger Things is too scary for her.
My best friend is like that. My best friend is like that. She wouldn't watch The Goonies. She's like, it's terrifying. I'm like,
The Goonies is for babies. And you're afraid of the Goonies? Yeah.
I want to ask about the mommy brain portion because as someone who wants to be pregnant one day, I had never known about that. And it was really interesting to watch the film and to watch Alana's character go through this mommy brain of like, am I crazy? Am I being gaslit? Is this really happening? My favorite scene especially is the lunch scene she has with her husband. Like, you've already brought me this. And she just goes, what? And I said out loud, what? So from your perspective outside watching your lady go through this, is mommy brain something you've witnessed on the outside?
I mean, for me, the thing that I realized about this experience when I tried to understand why do women throw babies out the window, was really dark and nervous for me. And I started to really understand the empathy and empathize with it because I started to realize the isolation and the lack of support that we do not give people who are suffering both physical and mentally. And we in this country, I don't know why, just don't care about healthcare, and we don't care about being a human. And so mommy brain is that cute commercial button we put on things. Oh, it's mommy brain. Instead of actually supporting something, why don't we just debase humans to just a cute little catchphrase? And that excuse is like, oh, it's just an excuse, but yeah, mommy brain's a real thing. Postpartum is a real thing and prepartum is a real thing. And so in the movie, we just wanted to point out how we don't actually talk about it or support it or actually do anything about it. We give it a cute phrase. And so that's where that came from, just as a sort of criticism of, our lack of support, basically, which is really both funny because it's sad, sad because it's funny.
No, and I love that because what your story does really well is it makes the audience almost have mommy brain because I purposely, my goal in this movie was to make, I think I say this to all my friends, most men in this room probably don't know what it means to be gaslit, but most women do, to experience the kind of confusion of reality and the questioning of the self and how destructive that is. I hadn't seen that done in a movie, to actually take advantage of that and make people utterly confused throughout the movie. Yes.
And I really wanted to make sure people knew what it felt like to be gaslit. There's, the story, the movie's not necessarily a story. It's a character experience and it's an audience experience for them to go wait, what is real? What is not? And what does that feel like? And that is, you get lost. You just end up spending your life in a fog, and that's no way we should live. It's kind of buffoonery to live that way.
No, your execution is flawless. And this is why, because I was watching it and as a woman, I go, okay, I'm going to believe this character. She's saying this is happening to her. I'm going to believe her. And then I would see some scenes and I go, girl, what's happening? Is this really happening? I want to believe you. I want to be on your side. I want to support you, but also this seems a little nutty. So, and at the end of the film, when you guys, I won't spoil it, you'll see it. I still felt that way to the credits. I was like, gosh, I really want to believe this woman and this ending that she's giving me. But also, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm just in her mommy brain.
Well, that's the sad truth of it, right? Often, and I grew up with an older sister, and I always hung out with women more than men. I always got along with them because they're funnier and more sarcastic, and they just like to be they like to talk, and I always like that. And so with my wife is fiercely independent. She's really strong. She's vocal, loudmouth, in all the great ways possible. I just sort of always understood that the only time she actually got what she wanted, either had to fight for it or it was in a fantasy. And I was like, oh, that's such a tragedy. Men, and I'm mostly white. I'm not all white, but I'm mostly white. It's easier for us to just make fantasy our reality. But I think for women or people of color, it is a struggle.
Yeah.
And just knowing friends like that and just seeing it and being aware of it most of my life and just going oh, to me, that's an interesting ending. Is it real or not? Or is that the only way she can live? Or did she earn it? Or did she escape into that? Was she driven into that place? I don't know. It's up to however you feel about it, you can feel about it. I have my answers, but they're irrelevant. It's about the feeling that kind of last moment, the last 10 minutes gives you.
And I can't wait for people to see it because it was very reminiscent of the last moment in Inception, where you're like, is the toggle going to fall? Is it going to, or is it going to suspended? Like, is he out of the dream or he's not? So
is the toggle the dream, right?
Or is the toggle the dream? So I love open endings like that to just, like you said, it's a judge a character for who the audience is. For me, I believe the woman. So I say, yeah, she did that. And that happened. That was her ending because I'm going to believe her perspective. That's the optimist in me. But and then there's other people who watch it and will be pessimistic. Oh, this was all a facade. Like none of this had happened at all.
I wanted the movie to end on a positive note. I'm not a very cynical person, even though I think a lot of the things I've made are quite regressive, you know, but I try to think of all those things as being optimistic or positive in some way. And to me, that ending is positive, you know, to me, like it is, there's something kind of still beautiful about it, even though it had to go through a lot of suffering or tragedy to get there.
Okay, same page, because again, I'm not going to spoil it, but that last image, as haunting as it is very beautiful in my opinion, and it's haunting, and she's, you know, to me, it's still a happy ending. It's may not be conventional happy ending, but it is a happy ending. So, okay, same page. I'm glad we did that. Okay. I want to talk about one particular scene, and I promise the people who are listening, we're going to get more into the writing, but I have to gush about this one moment. I was really worried at the beginning of the film that your Black female character was going to be this spiritual, yes, you see it? The spiritual Negro type. And I was like, gosh, I really love this film. I'm sad that they're going with this. And then you flipped it on my head, slight spoiler. But that whole monologue that actress gave just spoke to my soul. I want to know, where in the conversations in the script did you come up with this? Like, okay, we know this is a real trope and we're going to subvert this.
Well, you have to, once you talk about feminism, you know, and it's Ilana Glazer and myself, you have to accept that that's a white history, right? Like we're not dumb enough to ignore that, you know. And there were talks of like, should this stay in, should this not? And I said, if we take it out, that makes the movie actually racist. You know, if we are gonna, like, you know, that's the problem. If you're gonna make something that has politics at its core, you better talk about the full spectrum of politics, and you better be aware of the full spectrum of politics. And that is the moment in the movie when Lucy realizes that she's complicit, you know, she's part of the problem. And that's the moment in the movie that she gets reborn. And that's the moment in the movie that she actually takes charge of her life, you know, is when you start to see yourself in the problem. And that idea, we were struggling to figure out how to make that part of the story. And then again, my wife and my lady, who is clearly much smarter than me and much greater than me, and is like, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just say why don't you just make it a fantasy? You know, like, and I was just like, oh my God, it was already written. So my wife just clarified what was structurally there and just gave, you know, whatever, shined up the little tiny diamond that was there. And then Ilana and I were like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And now we can actually talk about the trope. Do we use the word? That was a real discussion in the actual writing. Like, how much do we say? How much does the audience even know that phrase? You know, mystical negress, do they not? But I think once you say it, you kind of understand what it means.
Right.
And once you experience it, you understand whether you know that phrase or not, whether that's jargon to you or not. But it was really important for the movie because I think you have to, you know, when you're talking about privilege, you better talk about race or you're an asshole.
No, and I thought, I mean, it was so brilliantly executed. I'm so glad that you fought to keep it in there and that everyone decided it should be, and that the word was actually said, because maybe people don't know it. I know it, obviously. I'm a huge horror fan. I'm a Black woman, but you're right. Some people won't. So hopefully they will Google it and they will research it and to learn why it's such a harmful trope. So I just applaud you. That's the first time I've ever seen that on film, Yeah.
The actress Zainab Jah, she's great. She's got this magical voice, you know, she was just like, this is the first time I've ever read anything like this. And she lives in my neighborhood, kind of the other side of my neighborhood, but it's like the Marin, it's Park Slope. It's the Marin of, you know, like of Brooklyn. And she's always gets mistaken for like, oh, are you interested in being a nanny? And she's like, no, I just think your baby's cute just because I'm like Black and I'm like whatever she is age doesn't mean I need a job. I'm a professional. And like, she was like, this is the first time I read anything that ever said that out loud from my perspective. And she was so like, it was so kind and thoughtful of her to say, you know, she doesn't have to say that, but she's like, I don't audition a lot. I don't go out for parts, but I read this and I was like, I have to get it. I have to get this part because this, you know, like we need, some flags need to be seen as you wave the flag to get like as warning signals. Sometimes people see them and recognize them and hear you and support you and all those things. And she was very much one of those people.
Yes, and hopefully other horror filmmakers watch your film and go, oh, I don't have to do this low-hanging fruit thing. Like, look how they subverted it. I can actually.
I mean, you don't even want to get into low-hanging fruit. Is also like we're getting into like strange fruit, all this like crazy stuff. Like, you know, like all those things for sure. People should make work that's like, you know, has a purpose, you know. I also like really dumb entertainment. I'm not that, you know, and like I like things that are basic and I like things that are like conceptual, but I just am personally always compelled to make something that has a purpose or at least has a response to the world, whether that be wonder shows and we have that little black girl at Wall Street, you know, asking people, how do you sleep at night? Or like, you know, the Heart-She Holler, which is about like the evil of whiteness. That's the wave that's washing over us that we predicted 8 years ago was going to happen. And then what happened? It did happen, you know, like, so like, I think we just, all of our work, PFR, Allison and Vernon Chapman and myself, we just tend to need to make stuff about something.
And then, okay, so speaking of the work, all right, you said this origin came from a tragedy. I'm so sorry to hear about your miscarriage. So then how do you and Alana as co-writers, like, where do you start? Are you going to outline of your idea?
I had a 60-page kind of tone poem script. It was a script, but it was like more mood and feeling than story and character. And she approached me and said, hey, let's make something together outside of Broad City. And I sent her that and she loved it. And we talked about it off and on just because we were both busy doing stuff. And then finally we both said, let's make it. Let's like sit down and write it. Let's spend 1 to 3 months back and forth and just write it. And we just turned it. She added a lot of character and a lot of structure and a lot of like little things like about Dr. Hindle that were just like made it from like just a mood into an actual movie. And so we would just sit down once a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, and usually at her apartment, sometimes at mine, but usually her apartment, and just go back and forth. There was no one writer. Sometimes I'd be like, oh, I got this scene. I'll see you tomorrow. I got these next 3 things. Sometimes she'd be like, no, let me take it. It was very collaborative. It was very mercurial. We would like, some days would be like nothing would happen. Some days a lot would happen. Sometimes we'd split up the script, but we'd always just felt very like the two of us literally writing whenever the person felt the strongest or they got the jokes, or it'd be like, say that again. And we'd type it, you know. So it was very a collaborative effort. And then just, I don't know, thousands of iterations, you know, because of that. You know, I always think there's like, when people ask that, how many iterations of the script? And I'm like, it's a script. There's just one, and it's always changing. You know, like it never rests until
even when you're filming.
Until you're done shooting, until that last day, you're like, we did it. We made a movie. Even then, you're still rewriting because like you're in post and you're in editing, reshoots. So the script, I always feel like it's conceptually it's never locked, but you have to lock it at some point.
At some point. And then I'm really curious to know, how did Justin Theroux come about? Because I love him, but he always plays such a bad guy. And I was like, oh, he's going to be bad. As soon as I saw his name, I was like, he never plays like a sweet, doting husband. It's always like a twist on it. But I love him for it. He's the best villain ever. So.
Yeah, he's, I've known him for maybe 15 years. He's been in a couple of others. He was in Xavier Renegade Angel, the cartoon I made for Adult Swim. He was in that. He was... and we always just like, we're very similar kind of people, you know, like, so he just seemed so perfect. And he really was willing to like participate, and he understood his role in this, you know, and he understood like, you know, like both he and Pierce Brosnan, you know, they surprisingly gave a lot for what they had to do and who they were, you know, like it's the funny thing. I read a review the other day that's like, and the Justin Theroux character is just sort of a prop. And I was like, yes. And I was like, we did it, because usually it's the woman who's a prop in a movie.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, we did it. We made the man, the husband, just a prop, you know, and that was the point of the character. So that was a criticism that I thought was actually a compliment.
Well, he's the finest prop I've ever seen in my life.
But he does such a great job at that role of just being there and understanding the microaggressions and understanding the kind of like the duality of that, of like, you know, like I probably do it all the time. I don't mean to be mean, but like, I'm sure I am, you know, like, and like, you don't know how you do it. And he does that fine role of like, he's actually concerned, but is he actually concerned? You know, like, and that kind of duality. He's so good at that. He's so good at both comedy and drama. He's an underrated comedy person. As a writer, he's amazing. And then as an actor, I don't think a lot of people really think of him as a great comedic actor in the way that he's a drama actor, but he's very, very funny. He's very funny.
Oh, I know. I'm a Sex and the City fan, and I remember his Sex and the City episode, and I said, let him do it again. He should be in comedies. I love him, and he always plays a villain. So, but he's such a good villain. I know the best people, usually the kindest people, play the best villains. So I'm sure that's true with Justin. You know?
That was true with Justin and Pierce. They're both so
Pierce.
They're both so nice and handsome. You just sort of hate them. You know, they're like one of those people.
Yes.
Like, you're both nice and you're handsome. I had to get out of my party. I don't need you here.
Get out of here. And you're talented. And
yes. Shoo.
I know, it's disgusting. It's disgusting, but it's fun to watch. And there's not to spoil. I'm not going to spoil it. I promise listeners, but there's a scene with Justin and Pierce that I will always hold dear to my heart and soul. Thank you so much for doing that.
That's what I mean by they were very giving.
Yes.
That our assistant editor Kira, during that, when we only did one take of that scene, and I showed her a cut of that scene and that area, and she's like, "Oh, Justin's so lucky."
Yeah, right? Exactly. Justin is lucky, and so is Pierce. They're both equally, honored.
That was I bought her a cookie for that. That was
this is that's one of my favorites, and one of them that I'm hoping that scene is also like true and real, because I want it to be like in my mind.
Well, it's also like what the patriarchy is, right? In so many ways. Yeah. That's how I think. If you really want to reduce it, that's what it is.
I love it. I love it so much. So thank you so much for that scene. That was a cherishable moment for me. As we wind down here, I want to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests in the podcast, which is, what advice would you give your younger writer self?
The advice I'd give myself is get past the first act. Like, don't keep rewriting the first act. When you go into rewrite or you go to write the next day, don't start on page 1. Start on the page you left. So if day 1 you write page 1 through 14, whatever it is, next day, don't even read it. Just start on page 14 and go forth. I think it happens a lot with scripts. You read scripts, and I read tons of scripts, that the first 30 pages are so good because they always start on page 1, and you work on that and you work on that and you work on that, but you get exhausted after page 30 of rewriting and writing, that I think you have to get to the end, and then you have to like basically destroy and rebuild and support as much as possible after that.
Get it done, right? Just finish it.
Just literally finish it. I help a lot of people on sets. I'm always like, I'll read your stuff, I'll support your stuff, send me stuff. And I would say 95% of the time people don't send me stuff. I know. And I'm just like, just do it. You have to finish it. Like, if not, why not? And the greatest thing about when you finish something writing, you can throw it in the trash. Like, it's such a relief to go like, oh, I'm done. Bye-bye.
Or you actually have something tangible that you can work with.
Of course. But if you never finish it, it's always sitting in the back of your mind. Your mind is never clear. You've never committed full focus to it, nor have you let it escape your brain. So your brain starts to get cloudy because other ideas come in and other things. And then it starts to become a mush, and you just have to get it done. You have to get it done. That's what I would tell myself.
And on that note of just getting it done, thank you so much for stopping by, John, and taking time in your busy day. I know you're out for scout. Can you tell everyone when and where we can watch False Positive?
First of all, I'm a huge fan of Final Draft. It's like I've been with it for a long, long time. Everyone is always so helpful and so good. And what I tell people is when they want to get into screenwriting, I'm like, just get it, just buy it. just do it. Like, what are you doing? Why waste your time? Like, just do it. But False Positive is on Hulu on June 25th. Yeah, I think that sounds right. Sure. Why not?
Why not? Yeah, it's on Hulu though.
And if not, then check the next day and the next day.
Yeah, just come back.
It's on the 25th of June, and basically a week. Like
yes, a few days. Not even a week. You've got like 4 days here. So
I'm going to try. I'm gonna go to Times Square and check out the giant billboard and be like, and then I can retire.
Yes, there you go. Are you gonna have a watch party, like a tweet fest?
No, I don't do any of that shit.
Oh,
okay. I'm shy. I don't need like people like.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll do it just for that scene with Justin.
Oh yeah. If you do it. I'll do it with you if you do it. Like if you're in charge, like I'll like be on the phone with you while we watch it and we can talk.
It's a deal. Yeah, I'll do it.
And jokes and whatever you want.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, John, so much for having me. Everyone, check out the next episode of Right On, and I will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thanks to John Lee for coming on the show, and as always to Sharday Sellers for killing it. False Positive is streaming on Hulu right now. And as always, thanks to you, our listeners. If you liked this episode, leave us a review, and if you haven't already, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. For news about future episodes and more, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Final Draft Inc. and Instagram at Final Draft Screenwriting. This episode was produced by Kayla Guess with help from associate producer Emma Vranich. Music by T. Kelly. Thanks again, everyone. Until next time, right on.